Okay. This is different. It's exciting times. I am going to call this man, and we're going to do a chat about his fantastic book, Justin Barbour. And it's all new. This is a Whisky Fireside chat live on the computer. Let's see if he's on. I hope he's on. He said he'd be on. Oh, this could go really wrong. This could go very badly. Just gonna get my whiskey. Whoa!
Kevin!
How you doing?
How many times have I told you I don't want to do this interview? Leave me alone, but stop calling me for this. This is the 7th time now in the last 10 minutes.
Oh, I see. Now you've become really world-renowned because of your book. You have no time for me.
No, I want to go back in the woods, so I don't want to do any of it.
That's fantastic. The book's doing well?
It is, yes, it is, absolutely. Thanks for having me too, by the way. It's an honor.
Oh, no, fantastic. First of all, I loved your video series on your trip. And then when you got a book out, I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is so awesome. So what is this trip? If people have not seen his video series, well, I think everybody has seen his video series, but if you haven't, what's it all about?
Morning, we start with a bit of a bushwhack here. Stay with me, Zach. I'm coming back for you, Zach.
To say I'm speechless.
The video series and the book, of course, they're both based on the trip I made across the wilderness of Newfoundland by snowshoe and pack raft and foot, and of course Saku was swimming and walking the whole way, and it's back in 2017. It was a 68-day trip, 700 kilometers through some of the most remote, unseen wilderness areas in the province.
And you weren't alone, you took your dog.
Yeah, me and Saku. He was an 8-month-old Cape Shore water dog at the time. He's 3.5 now, but yeah, he was only a pup. And
Saku, what do you got under your bag, buddy? Come here. Come here. There you go.
I couldn't get anyone to sign up for it. It's not easy and understandable. It's not happening every day. People aren't just taking off for, 2.5 months. But if I could tell you anything about me, it's that I don't like to wait around. If I get an idea in my head, I just want to run with it, and that's what happened. And I went with man's best friend, and it was the best decision I could ever make.
Well, yeah, you don't wait around because you went really early in the year, like really early.
The ice was on its way out, but there was still some life left in it.
So why so early?
Long story short, I had planned this trip for it was about a little less than 2 years before the date, and less than a year before I was getting ready to leave, 8 or 9 months, a pretty important wedding got thrown into the mix there. In the spring and summer, weddings are popping up like daisies, and one came in mid-July, and I didn't think, because originally I was going to leave May 24th long weekend, but I thought trying to get back for early July, I didn't know how long it was going to take. So I said I was going to move the trip a month earlier. So I left April 24th, and we had late winter that year. We were dumped with 40 centimeters of snow. I think it was the last day of March. And because it was doing all right up until then, there wasn't too much snow, but then we got dumped with it heavy. Then I had to use a sled to go through the mountains and all this stuff, and as you see in the video, we got into a bit of a tangle there in the spring melt.
Then we were presented with a long winding brook that was open and on our path. Saku, hold up. Hold up, let me see your spot. Let me see. Good boy. Hey, stay. Okay. Hey. With nearly 100 kilometers in and lots of walking on snow and ice, Saku's paws begin to show some wear and tear.
So why the dog? Did you just decide at the last minute to take the dog with you, or?
No, that was part of the plan. Yeah, I didn't really want to do it on my own. I'd done a trip about, when was 2 years before that, and I went for 16 days across the Newfoundland Wilderness Reserve. It's a little spot here on the east coast of Newfoundland. It's like 1,300 square kilometers, and I made a trip through there on my own. But I made this trip, and I got fired up to do bigger trips, longer trips. I got back from the 16-day trip, and everyone kind of said, "Is it out of your system?" Like my parents and friends, and my girlfriend Heather, she's my fiance now, but at the time she's my girlfriend, and I said, "No, I want to do something bigger." And like I said, it was hard to find anyone who wanted to go at something to this extent. So I wanted to get a dog, and I knew that long before I went on the trip. But I got Saku 10 months or 8 months old before we left.
And it's a true Newfoundland dog.
Well, he's a Cape Shore water dog. So he's like a mix of a lab, Chesapeake Bay Retriever, Irish Setter, Portuguese water dog, and so it's a big mix of everything. Basically, some of the breeders from the community where Saku comes from state that he may be the ancestor, or the original Newfoundland dog is the ancestor to Saku's breed. And it's a long, tangly story, but you know the Newfoundland dog now, it's with a big head, it's a real big dog. But basically, back in like the 1800s and stuff, when trappers and woodsmen and even people on the water were using dogs to retrieve ducks and help them in the woods, it was unpractical to have a big old dog like the Newfoundland dog that there is today. So if you look back in a lot of old pictures, and they're hard to find, but there are some, and it shows the earliest Newfoundland dog, and it's a lot like Saku. High on its back legs, thick curly coat, like he looks like a lab in his face, but he got a thick kind of, it's like real knotty fur on him, but yeah. Wonderful dog, hardy breed, right?
It's not a bad morning. It's wet and gross, but it's warm at least.
Well, and cheers, by the way. It's a Whisky Fireside chat, you know.
Yeah, I don't got it. I should have had one, man. I should have got a beer. I got one up the fridge, but I just got a coffee.
What?
Sorry, man. I should put some Baileys in it.
Are you sure you're from the island?
Yeah.
This is what we're having. It's called Talisker. I don't know anything about it. Actually, my buddy Tim Foley from Canadian Outdoor Equipment, he mailed it to me for my birthday. I never thought you could mail booze, but yeah, he mailed it for me, so yeah.
Oh, okay, wicked. Yeah, you must have a few bottles of whiskey kicking around. Every time you have a video, you got a different kind.
No.
No. You're drinking all of that.
No, yeah. All right, I got to check to make sure this is rolling, because I got to ask you the most ultimate question. Wait a minute. We're still recording. Okay, this is the big question. Forget the big journey. Forget that the dog went with you and the dog survived and you survived. The tooth. Did you lose that tooth during your hockey life?
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Hold on. What are you talking about?
I swear, I'm watching your video series. I go, okay, I'm going to take a shot every time the tooth is missing.
We set up camp today around 1:30 p.m. We had put in a good solid 7 hours, leaving around 6:30 a.m. this morning.
Yeah, a screenshot?
Yeah.
A shot of booze?
Yes.
Oh, geez, you wouldn't make it through episode 1. That's that solid.
Oh, man.
This is what happens when you leave the missus for 2.5, 3 months, and you decide not to get anyone to come in and mow the lawn for her. So she just takes a swing at you before you leave, and then that's it, the teeth are gone.
Oh Well, but it's true. Like you basically grew up in Newfoundland and then went away. What was it to the Cape to actually play hockey? And you wanted to actually go into the National Hockey League, right? The NHL.
Oh, geez, Kevin.
Yeah, I read the book.
Where'd you read that in tabloids?
Well, you gave it a shot, though, right?
Yeah, no, like, you know, I played minor hockey here in Newfoundland, and I played like major AAA. I don't know if you're familiar with the levels of it. And then I moved away. I had a little crack at the Quebec Major Junior League. Then I ended up playing 4 years of Junior A in Miramichi, New Brunswick. But yeah, then I played that till I was older. Like, you know, you can only play till you're 21. That's your kind of final year. And then I came home and started playing senior hockey here on the island. Great league. Like, there's some former NHLers in the league. Like Darren Langdon was a fighter in the NHL, and there was lots of other players. But yeah, I was the first game of the season in the senior league. I'm 22 now, and after we leave the ice, you know, in junior they be coming in with like bananas and fruit and water and Gatorade. After this game, they were coming in with 2 fours of beer and chicken wings and hamburgers, and I was like, okay, the dream going to the NHL is over. That was my first dream in life. Like especially a lot of Canadians and North Americans and anyone around the world who played hockey, but very small chance, of course. But along the way, I got into a few tussles and a few sticks got swung around, and I ended up sacrificing a couple giblets.
So you went back to the island and went into education, and then you were even in outdoor education, right?
Yeah, well, I came back and, you know, being involved with sports and stuff my entire life. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I've always worked hockey schools and that when I was younger, so I wanted to work with kids and do something involved with sports, I guess, so I decided to try to be go do the phys ed teacher thing. So that went on for, 3 years, that degree, and then I did education. That was a year after I followed up with that. But part of the course, of the phys ed course, we did some outdoor education sections, and there was a summer one where we went on a canoeing course. There was a winter one too, and we did build Quincy's and snowshoed and cross-country skied. T.A. Loeffler taught that one. I'm sure you've heard of her. She's attempted Everest a few times. Did some nice crazy paddling trips, big inspiration of mine. But the summer trip was taught by, and you know Kev Redmond, do you?
Mm.
Yeah, so Kev taught that, and Basil Kavanagh.
Yeah.
And they took us in for a couple nights off Salmon Line, which is like an hour outside St. John's, and there's a bit of a canoe route there. And they took us in, and I hadn't been in a canoe in my life. Never. And, I maybe camped once, but I always liked the outdoors growing up. Like, I grew up in a rural community just outside St. John's, 30 minutes, and I always was building cabins and lean-tos and trouting and on my bike and just bushwhacking through the woods. But when I got into hockey when I was like 12 years old, that was it. I went like 12 years and never ever went outdoors. It was like Labor Day weekend, once a year in my grandparents' cabin, if I could make it. Other than that, I barely ever went out. But doing this course with Kev, the canoeing course, I got back from that and I was like, wow, that was fun. If I have a canoe, and I really enjoyed fishing. I was getting back into it at that point. Me and my buddies were always going trouting, like for brook trout and stuff. I said, how far can I go with a canoe? How far can I go fishing, If I want to carry the canoe from one lake to the next, how far? I can go and go and go. And I always like pushing myself in like physical and mental challenges through hockey and training for hockey that I kind of related with these outdoor trips. I could push myself, but I could also get out and fish and hunt and enjoy the outdoors and get away from everyone for a bit. Because we all get sick of people, don't we?
What are you doing, Zach? Hey, buddy. So, last night got down to minus 14. Wasn't too bad.
So what you're saying is outdoor education changed your life?
Oh, it was, yeah, absolutely. That course changed everything. Once I did that course, I just got on the internet and started looking up outdoor stuff, and I came across, the first one was funny enough, was Dick Pronicki. nothing to do with paddling or expeditions. You know, Dick.
Oh yeah, love that. Love it.
My buddy introduced me to him, and then I was no hurry to run away for 30 years, but I liked his passion for the outdoors and the filming aspect, and just like how he just romanticized the outdoors up in Alaska. And then I just followed YouTube, and I stumbled on the next guy was Mike Horn. He was a South African. He's like an extreme adventurer. I don't know if you've heard of him. He circumnavigated the world. Like he went through the Amazon jungle, all these crazy trips. Like I didn't want to go to the Amazon. I wanted to catch brook trout. There's no brook trout down there.
Zach, look at this. That's a beaut, Zach. 3 pounds. What do you think, bud?
But I liked the idea of moving by my own power and covering big distances, kind of like he done. And then it was a Norwegian by the name of Lars Monsen. I found a documentary he had on YouTube. He crossed Canada. It was like 2.5 years. And that was more my style. And so amongst all this stuff, then I got into reading about the earliest explorers in Newfoundland. It was a big snowball effect and about, the indigenous people here and their way of life on the land. And I got more traditional. And all throughout this, these years, I was kind of finishing school and still playing a bit of senior. I was out going on trips. It was a half day, then it was one night, like my first night solo on my own in the woods. It was only probably, 7 years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Then it was 2 days, then it was 3 days. And a lot of these trips were with my buddies. But after 2 or 3 days, I always wanted to go a little further, or, do something a little extra. And people started being like, no, that's okay. We'll take a pass. We don't want to go in the woods for 3 or 4 days. So that was it. I just started doing things on my own. And then I made that 14-day or 16-day trip across the Newfoundland Wilderness area. And I got back from that one, and that's when I looked at the Newfoundland trip. I was teaching in Cartwright in 2015 for a year up in Labrador on a replacement. And at that point in time, I was sizing up, I want to make a longer trip in Newfoundland. There's so many opportunities. And then I was going to leave from the west coast and go so far into the interior, and I said, what's the point of going so far and stopping? I might as well go from one end to the other. And that's how it all kind of brewed up, Kevin, I guess.
So when you're going across, what was the most scenic part of your journey?
The most scenic. Listen, Kev, just pause it for a sec. I gotta join you now because I feel guilty. Hold on.
He might not be coming back. He said he was going off to get a wee dram because he felt guilty. Oh, I just saw the dog's tail. The dog's there. At least I think it was. Maybe giant rats living in Newfoundland. He's not coming back. That's his book. Fantastic. Video series, fantastic. And really good read. Everybody was wondering if you're coming back or not.
Well, I don't got whiskey, but here in Newfoundland we do things a little differently. Lamb's rum. You ever have it?
And you're right. It's more rum than screech, right?
Yeah, Lamb's rum is the top seller in liquor stores in Newfoundland. I have a little bit of whiskey here and there, like some Gibsons or something, but I'm no connoisseur like you. Cheers, anyway.
Well, cheers. Slante.
Anyway, I have Pepsi, Would you put Pepsi in with your whiskey?
No! Yeah, if I wanted to go to hell, I would. Well, and that's a good question. You went for how many days across Newfoundland?
It was 68 days.
Yeah, so did you bring any rum for that trip?
Yeah, I had a few nips, we'll call it. A few nips in the evening. It was more a reward when I made it so far. But, like later in the trip when I made it to like the 400-kilometer mark, I remember I drank like half a flask or something that evening, and I was following the bushes because it was the first thing I drank in like a month. I was 15 pounds lighter than I was when I started,
All right, so what was the most scenic part of the journey across the Newfoundland Wilderness?
Oh, the most scenic part by far was on the top of the Long Range Mountains there on the west coast. Because lots of wilderness and forest and woods here, and I love that too, but I'm an East Coast boy in Newfoundland. I grew up on the East Coast. But on the west coast of the province, as you know, there's we have like the Grossmore and the Long Range Mountain, which is like an extension of the Appalachian chain when Newfoundland, long time ago, was connected to the mainland North America. But cutting over those mountains, pulling the sled, I started at sea level, and then 2.5 days later or something, I was like 1,800 feet above sea level. And I was on top of the mountains, and I could see for days. And
Well, was that the most difficult part? Like, what was the most difficult part of the journey?
But no, not at all. I think if I would have done that section, if the winter didn't linger on as late as it did, and I would have had to do that section in without snow through the mountains, I think it would have been a lot more difficult. Getting through here in Newfoundland, we got a lot of this thing called tuckamore. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
It's like there's a lot of open areas that are windswept. I don't know if I mentioned the book, but there's areas that are windswept and barren, and all the spruce trees are like up to your kneecaps. They're real short, maybe your waist, and they're all tangled and gnarled up like barbed wire. So like walking through them is a real pain, especially if you can't find like a caribou trail or a moose trail or a black bear trail to kind of follow. So if I would have done the Long Range Mountains because Tuckamore is especially bad in these barren higher areas. If I would have done it in the summer, it would have been more difficult. So going through there with the sled was a breeze, because late in the year, all the snow was wind packed and like hard packed from all, the winter and the wind and stuff. So I was flying over the mountains.
Every now and then you just got to go through a bit of Tuckamore. There's not much you can do about it.
With ease, right? And it was easy for Saku. It was all like, he wasn't sinking down the snow.
It's a fine load this morning. No doubt about that. Yoo-hoo! Woo! Come on, boys. Here we go. Let's go, Sack. Here we go, buddy.
So what was your best wildlife encounter along the way?
The most memorable wildlife encounter was a black bear I seen I'd say it was only half a kilometer behind my campsite. And I don't know if you remember when you were reading, I was stuck on this lake for like a week waiting for it to unthaw. And I was getting low on food, and I caught a bunch of fish. And I had all these fish cleaned, and I was like smoking them by the fire and all this kind of stuff, because I had only time, nothing but time. I couldn't go anywhere. The lake was still frozen. Anyways, I had fish smoke, and I had some in the snow that was left in some of the snow banks. And I took off and left my camp and all this fish back at my site. And I get up half a kilometer and doing some more trouting in a little tiny brook, kind of. And I seen a huge black bear across. I was making a cast. I cast 3 times in this brook. And then after my third cast, there was a huge black bear on the other side. I'd say it's probably 700 pounds, huge. And I've seen a couple dozen in my life out on these trips, but this was a monster. And the fact that it was on a peninsula, and we were on the peninsula, and it was coming in our direction, then it went through the woods, and I instantly turned around and went right back to the campsite, just to kind of hold down the fort, and I didn't want him getting into our food, but I never ever seen him after. I've seen a lot of caribou herds too. Like I seen one herd of like 25 caribou. That was cool. That was the biggest herd I had ever seen before.
It's also to do with the people on the island. It's true what they say. Amazing people, right? So what were the best people encounters?
Yeah, I had a lot of great people encounters. People are real hospitable here in the island, and they want to help you out any way you can. And of course, someone coming around like me, like they thought I was homeless. Like every step of the way, whether it was in Robinson's where I started the trip and I went up to this restaurant, little pub to get a feed before I left. And, as I was getting ready to pay, the manager had already left, and she said like the couple beers I ordered and the food the lady who was working said she had already paid for it for me. And, then later on, I came out to my first checkpoint, and a local outfitter had helped me out, and he took my food supply. because I didn't want to leave it in the woods. I didn't want animals getting into it. So he had took it and left it at his little camp there. And then when I got to the checkpoint, he let me stay in his trailer for a few days as the weather was kind of shitty there, and it was a lot of rain, and that was during the snow melt. And then I got like to Can River, the only registered reserve here on the island of Newfoundland, home of the Mi'kmaq people, and I spent time with the chief of the reserve there, Chief Mizel Joe, and he took a food supply and he showed me around the community, and more people from the community popped out to see me, and yeah, the whole way, but I can go on and on here, but everyone was supporting me every step of the way, people I ran into and didn't know before. And I don't know if you're aware, but when I left on this trip, I had a Garmin InReach Explorer. You know what I'm talking about, eh?
Yeah.
And I was posting, every evening I decided to just post an update on like Twitter and Facebook. I pinned myself so people could see my campsite every night. Right, I don't know why I wanted people to know where I was every evening, but I thought it was a nice way to get people involved, and I done that. But every step of the way, people were coming by and like, "We're following you," and I was like, "Really? How did you find out about that?" Because when I left, there was like 200 people on my Facebook page, and then I got home and there was like a few thousand. I was like, "Boss, I'm only walking through the woods. I don't know what the big deal is."
All right, so the ultimate question for you. You filmed it, you edited it on your own, and then you wrote a book. What was more rewarding, the film or the book?
Yeah, they were both rewarding, but the book was more rewarding for sure. It was a more, as you know, I mean, editing, I put a lot of time in editing that series too, but the book I put more time into it, and the fact that, like when I was writing the book, when I got back from this trip, I wanted to share the story, and like it was just me and the dog, and I've always, when I was in school growing up, show and tell, I loved it. I always loved sharing things, but writing the book was like I wanted to show it off and let people know how it went, and show my mistakes and show the good things and everything else that happened, so people could learn. And I was writing it in my shed in St. John's, like sitting in the shed, writing the book, and I had a little wood stove in there that I had rigged up, and writing the book, and I had no publisher, never had any idea what would become of it, and I just felt like it was a big waste of time. But I had a little bit of belief there, Kevin, that it would work out, and everything worked out, and to see the book come together, and then to see the cover of it when it finally got printed it was a good feeling, but I guess it was worth it up to now.
So what's next?
What's next? Well, I got a caribou out in the shed out there. I got to go clean that now and get it all ready for the butcher. Well, you don't get that figured out yet, or what?
Sorry, the one camera was not recording, but this one was, so hope that we got all that. Thank God.
A few things in mind. Like last year I went to Labrador in 2018, and I made a trip. I left from Northwest River with Saku, and we went the plan was to go to Hudson Bay, 1,700 kilometers. And winter came early. I left, I don't know if you've heard anything about this trip, but I left end of July. And anyways, winter came early, and we only made it about 996 kilometers or something. We're in the northern Quebec. So I got, my pilot came in and flew me out of there, and it was only October 12th. Everything was frozen up there. So I'd like to go back this year in the summer and maybe finish that trip.
So big cheers to you.
Yeah, Kev, not all who wander are lost, right? But yeah, come down, man, anytime, and if I'm up your way, I'd like to do a Whisky Fireside in person, That would be fantastic, yeah, and really, I'd love to come back and visit your island and actually have a good chat with you too, for sure. This guy has done amazing stuff. This book is amazing, and yeah, you're still on tour. Yeah, no one wants to see the back of the book.
What? Why? What's wrong?
That's right, the camera's the other way. Sorry, bud. I'm just making sure that you're marketing things correctly.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, thanks a lot, and good luck to you, and I'll see you at some of the shows. You're doing some shows the spring.
Are you going to Canoecopia?
Yeah, I'll be at Canoecopia.
Listen, buddy, we'll be there March 13th.
We might get kicked out of the country, you and I.
Well, that's fine. We'll have a night out. I'll be there for a few nights.
Okay?
I'm looking forward to it now.
That sounds good. All right, I'm going to shut this down. Good luck.
Cheers.
I'm keeping the beers away now.